Hello, friends. Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim. I'm Aya Yeshe, and I've been a nun for 22 years. I'm the director of Bodhicitta Foundation, a socially engaged Buddhist charity working in Nagpur with people from the Ambedkarite community to educate women and children. We have a girls' home, 4 study centers. We make 7,000 meals per year for hungry children. And we also offer temporary ordination, Buddhist teachings, and meditation. We have been working with the community for 12 years. So, on this holy day of Mahapajapati Gotami's anniversary, I was invited by the Mahapajapati Education Foundation to speak about empowering women and the importance of bhikkhunis and the historical relevance of bhikkhunis. We can see that in countries where there are fully ordained nuns, women have a higher standard of living and education, and women who have the opportunity to take full ordination are usually more esteemed by society. Because of wars and because of patriarchy, the nuns' lineage died out in Theravadan countries, but that lineage was preserved through Sri Lankan nuns that sailed to China, and then that lineage went to Korea and other Buddhist countries, Vietnam and so forth. So we are still really lucky that the Bhikkhuni lineage lives today. And, many Buddhist scholars like Bhikkhu Bodhi, Bhante Sujato, Ajahn Brahms and Bhante Analayo have written extensively Ayatatthaloka about how that lineage is valid. There can be no doubt that women who don't have basic human rights, women who suffer in poverty, struggle to reach their human potential. And if you are struggling just to survive, it is hard to pursue the path of enlightenment. And that is why, justice and a livable wage and gender equality, treating your partner with respect, giving your employees dignity, days off, human rights, and ensuring that there is a stable government and welfare state for the vulnerable is really important so that Buddhist teachings can flourish. And it's interesting that we all know in every Buddhist temple, you'll see the two monks who are the Buddha's disciples, foremost in wisdom and psychic powers, Shariputra and Moggallana. But most people don't know the bhikkhunis who were foremost in wisdom and psychic powers, who also have really inspiring stories. And we can read about those stories in the Therigatha. But the nun, the bhikkhuni foremost in wisdom is Ayakema, and the bhikkhuni foremost in psychic powers is Upalavana. And we should remember the names of these ancient theories who were so impressive, who gave up a comfortable life in the palace to pursue a life of austerity and uncertainty. And in a time where women were just regarded as property, the Buddha said actually women have the capacity for awakening and accepted them into the Sangha. And, they always emphasized that there was reluctance to accept women into the Sangha, but actually, um, the Buddha was living under trees. So, of course, he was worried about how he would keep women safe. And, rape is a problem. So women need some security. So I think that was why the Buddha had reluctance initially, and also just the desire of men, that was why the Buddha was uncertain as to what to do with women approaching him for ordination. But we can thank Ananda, the Buddha's beloved disciple, for reminding him of his mother's kindness and reaffirming women's capacity to reach full liberation. So, more and more people are chasing money and, becoming all about me, me, me. Like that's the way of the world now, that people are pursuing their own dreams and education. And that's not a bad thing. But if you become a middle class Ambedkarite, and if you become a middle class person, it is really important to remember where you come from and help lift the other people out of poverty as well, as the great Dr. Ambedkar did and as the Buddha did. You know, the Buddha um, always talked about the gradual training in ethics. He gave advice to have human rights in the country, to not do animal sacrifice, to have ethical training, to not go to war unless it was absolutely necessary, how to be a good leader, how to pay your workers a just wage and treat them with respect, how to care for your parents and your elders and pay respect to those worthy of respect, and be well educated and do your job with, uh, you know, dignity and enthusiasm, and comport yourself as a good person in the world. He emphasized this gradual training as well as Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna, ethics, concentration, and wisdom. And, you know, why are nuns still relevant to society? Because they represent an end to suffering. And it is really especially important for women who are often not in control of their own destiny, to have this option to pursue awakening or to pursue social work and to be autonomous. You know, it's not the purpose of our life just to belong to a man. Even if you are a laywoman, you should recognize your own capacity for awakening and to make a difference in the world. And there are so many women who, like Savitri Bai Phule and many others who have, you know, made a difference. And we have the example of the early nuns as well. We have their stories. So I think we shouldn't kind of underestimate our own value, you know. And nuns represent a timeless archetype of freedom, and not just any freedom, but the freedom of people who have historically always been more marginalized and more oppressed. And women around the world in Buddhist communities, both lay and ordained, are doing amazing work in reviving the Bhikshuni lineage, in teaching and giving people solace in difficult times. Women in poor areas go to nuns for counseling and emotional support. And, you know, women can come together to overcome things like domestic violence and to advocate for human rights. Domestic violence is still a huge problem in many parts of the world. So I think we really need to talk about that. And, you know, nuns still have a lot less support than monks, especially in India. The standard of living, especially of Ambedkarite monks and nuns, is not easy. And often they're not in control of their own temples because the temple are run by lay people. So every year they just throw out a monk or a nun. So that, especially if you're an older woman, that leaves you in a very vulnerable position. And that is why we need to work together to establish permanent housing for nuns. And that is how we will attract younger, educated women to the Sangha, which we need for the Sangha to be viable, as well as our revered and wonderful, stable, older senior monastics. And just because someone doesn't have a university degree doesn't mean they're not an inspiring practitioner. The Buddha didn't go to university. So it's good to be educated, but it's more important to have the Dharma in your heart. So Bodhicitta Foundation is working with the Alliance for Bhikkhunis to try and establish some housing in the slums and maybe eventually in other areas. As part of our girls' hostel, we offer temporary nun ordination, and I'm opening to ordaining other nuns, but I'd like to make sure they're really sincere, you know, and not just trying to like travel the world. And I know there's like the work of Vietnamese nuns like Sister Chang Kong, the socially engaged Buddhist who worked in the slums of Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and Ayya Dhammananda in Thailand, who's been so instrumental in reviving the Bhikkhuni lineage and offering temporary ordination to women and fighting, the patriarchy there in her own quiet, dignified way, the amazing work of Ayatollah and that wonderful ordination that the nuns from Amaravati in England then joined and became fully ordained nuns. And Ayatollah has been a preceptor in California, has been a preceptor for so many women. The work of Lekshe Somo with the Himalayan Nuns and Jamyang Project. The work of Tenzin Palmo, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, who is preserving the Yogini lineage of the Drukpa Kagyu tradition for women. And I've started a monastery in Tasmania as well for non-sectarian nuns who are socially engaged and activists who need time for rest and retreat. And I think as certain parts of the planet warm up, my cold and remote monastery will be maybe more appealing as well. So I humbly rejoice in the work that all of you amazing nuns and women and men are doing to spread the Dharma and help humanity. Social work and Dharma go hand in hand, but they're not the same thing. And that's why it's really important for monks and nuns to spend time meditating and actually study the Pali Canon and the Mahayana teachings. Just because somebody comes from another tradition doesn't mean they don't have something valuable of the Buddha's teachings to offer us. So it's really important that along with social work and basic housing, that monks and nuns get access to real practice and, travel to Thailand or other countries to study and learn the Dharma, learn the Vinaya. And it would be good if that was made possible in their own language. So thank you and good luck. I hope you have a wonderful event.